Hi, Danny Andrew. Talking some more about my book, Bipolar Disorder Doesn't Have to Be Depressing. And after my diagnosis with bipolar disorder, my life was a disaster. I would go to my doctor's appointments, but part of the time I would miss them, and I would take my medication, but part of the time I would miss it too, and I would go see the therapist, but part of the time I would miss those appointments too. My life was a mess. It was a disaster is actually a better word than mess. Mess is a calm word. Disaster is a better word. So the day that I opened the door to a knock that I wasn't expecting, and on the doorstep stood this lady that I didn't know who she was, but next to her stood a sheriff's deputy. That's never good. And when that happened, my life came crumbling down around me because I had been accused of throwing alcohol parties for minors, and while that was not true, and I stand by that, that was not true, that did not happen, that was a fabrication on someone's part that will remain nameless at this point because it doesn't serve any purpose to name that person. We're not even going to go there. But what happened was my house was a wreck. My house was a disaster. And my children were there, and the police did not think it was a good idea for my children to be there. And honestly, I don't blame them because I had 2 dogs and I had a house that was a wreck, and the lady that was with them was from Child Protective Services. So they took my kids away from me. And what happened that day when they took my kids away from me, I literally slid to the floor as I'm watching them. I'm watching the policeman buckle my children into the backseat of his police car, close the door, and drive away. That is the most helpless feeling in the world, knowing there's nothing you can do, not a thing I could do to go solve that problem. I can't run after him. I can't grab my kids away from him. I can't roll back time and not open the door. It's done. It's over. And as I'm laying on the floor, I had 2 options. One option is to go in to the bathroom and take every single pill in the cabinet and end it. I was horribly ashamed to be in this position of having lost my children because my house is a wreck. And it's nobody's fault but my own. It lays square on my shoulders. I could be mad at the person that called, but at the same time, I'm the housekeeper here. I'm the one that's responsible for my life. I'm a grown woman. So do I end my life? Do I take the pills? Or do I get up and start cleaning up this mess, this disaster of my home? And ultimately, I'm laying on the floor, and I don't know how much time had elapsed by the time I decided to get up and start cleaning. But I did ultimately get up and start cleaning that house up. It took me all day to clean just the living room. It took me 8 days to clean up the house. And I got the kids back. I went into the Children, Youth, and Families, is what we call it here in New Mexico. And I got the kids back. I went into the program, and I spent 90 days in the program of someone watching over my shoulder to make sure that I was okay, that I could take care of my kids, and that this wasn't going to happen again. And they actually did come back one other time, but the kids weren't there. They were with their dads, and we dealt with it. And I was able to keep custody of my kids, get my house cleaned up, get my life cleaned up. But what it led to, that was the catalyst. That was the turning point in my life, to where I finally started getting myself together, going to the doctor's appointments, taking my medication like I was supposed to. There was Post-it notes literally stuck all over my house to remind me, go to the doctor, take your medication, go to the therapist. This was the turning point in my life. And the person who called meant it to be a pain in my backside. They didn't mean for me to get my stuff together. But that's what happened. This book would have never happened without that moment happening. This book right here. If you read the back, it says, slowly I slid to the floor as I watched the policeman buckle my children into the back seat of his police car, close the door and drive away. That's what's written on the back of this book. Would never have happened if that person hadn't called. Am I grateful? Honestly, I am. I am grateful. Was I mad? I was mad as hell. I wanted to smack him, but I didn't. Instead, I got myself together. And that's what this book is about.